There have been many nature documentaries that pique our interest, make us see vistas and imagery we could not even imagine. But all of these were made on planet Earth. Now, it is time to take it to the next level. Welcome to Planet ARK. Travel together with me to a land beyond time, beyond imagination, where dinosaurs and giants of ancient descent roam freely and wild. In this new and exciting series on the Kanoa channel, we will travel across the ARK universe, looking at different biomes, ecosystems, and take a closer look at the creatures that inhabit these. Some are giant and ferocious looking, but kind of heart in their nature, not wanting to hurt a fly. Others are small, fluffy, and make a cute impression, while of course we will also not skip over the smallest inhabitants of this fascinating place. And we will not only focus on the creatures that are there to be seen above the surface. In this series, we will travel the open seas as well, marveling at the unique creatures this brings with it. And at the same time, we will descend down to the deepest points to reveal the secrets of the ocean where no man has gone before. Or what about the animals that rule the skies, having their wings spread wide and travel wherever they wanted, being truly free? And what kind of secrets does the magnificent world of ARK hold for us? If one knows where to look, whole new ecosystems can be found in every nook and cranny. Some might frighten you, or give you the creeps as these critters do. But of course we will also spend the majority focusing on the dinosaurs, the true rulers of this land that can be found anywhere. From the mighty T-Rex, where we study its behavior to find out whether it hunted alone or in packs. To everyone's favorite friendly herbivore, the Triceratops. Travel along to places that will make your jaw drop, from lush islands and clear oceans as far as the eyes can see, to snowy mountaintops above the tundras, each with their own unique creatures to be seen, discovered, and researched. To beautiful but dangerous swamps where something nasty can snap at you from underneath the shallow water. Menacing islands where hot lava flows into the ocean and ash falls like rain, where survival of the fittest gets a new meaning as only the toughest of creatures can survive such a place. But we will see conflict everywhere, for though Planet ARK offers beautiful imagery, predators still have to eat and herbivores will continue to defend themselves. It is a conflict as old as time and remains unchanged in this environment as well. Unlike all the other ARK series on YouTube where people just play a survival game, this series offers something new and refreshing. It offers a journey and a look up close and personal to the animals without the fear of losing your stuff and having to respawn. Go the distance and see places like the center, where floating islands are surrounded by never-ending waterfalls. Who knows what secrets the island holds? To get a good look and understanding of all these creatures in different ecosystems, each episode we will only focus on a handful of creatures or a certain location. We will go in depth and provide you with awesome imagery and information on all the species that can be found here. And we will not only stick to the vanilla ARK world. Over the past months, discoveries have been made of places far and wide where never before seen creatures have been spotted for the first time. The hot and scorching desert land is a rough terrain where on first glance, life could not flourish. But on a closer look, it becomes clear that the creatures have adapted to the crude, dry environment. Nevertheless, everyone always is in search and combats one another for water, the most precious resource for any living being here. See with this series how the creatures living here have evolved and developed to thrive in these unique environments. And let's not forget that some of the cutest, furry critters live in these desolated deserts as well. We will also delve deeper within the secrets that these lands hold. Ancient ruins whisper of what once was. Somewhere inside, the key to more knowledge can be found, as archaeological discoveries give us hints to wonder upon. Minerals found nowhere else have not only a distinct influence on the animals surrounding it, but unique geographical shape as well. Or what about going underground? Not in just any regular cave, but towards the planet's actual core. Untouched by human civilization, yet works of metal and artificial material is present here. How exactly did the environment directly influence its present creatures this time? Does the lack of sunlight have any influence? Or does the moist environment make it to where certain creatures will flourish, as is the same for some flora and fungi? Some of the dinosaurs here have unique colors and patterns, but what does it mean, and what created this aberration? And will we get similar answers when we travel to the bottom of the ocean, where only creatures dealing with the increased pressure can live? How do they eat and continue to exist here, where life offers so little? And how come the cute cuddly penguins are only found in one particular part of the center area? These are all mysteries that we are going to try and solve over the next couple of episodes. If you already want to get a taste of what's to come, be sure to follow me on Twitter, where I will post previews and screenshots of the different creatures and biomes we will see in this series, and to be up to date on what's happening on the channel. If you wish to support the channel to keep it producing narrative series and content like this series, then please feel free to support it via Patreon, of which the link can be found in the description down below. With your help, we will make this series something truly special. So get ready for the journey of a lifetime. In the next and first official episode, we will take a closer look at some of the smaller islands that can be found around the center. Its shallow waters hold beautiful coral reefs, providing shelter to the little fish. Deeper inside the island, a mixture of friendly creatures can be found. But is it really that safe in this location? Are there no predators here to keep the ecosystem in check and prevent overpopulation? To try out this series, there will be 6 episodes to start with, and more with the Season 2 if you all like this. So sit back, relax, open a nice cold can of your favorite drink, and let's go on a journey together. Welcome to Planet ARK. At the edge of the center stream on Planet ARK, we find two giant islands surrounded by smaller ones, sometimes connected to one another. Yellow beaches and green palm trees decorate the crystal clear water as it reveals the several creatures live on these small land masses completely surrounded by the ocean. From this area, one can get a glimpse of many different places that Planet ARK has to offer, but for today, we will focus mainly on the northern major island to the east. The island goes by many names due to its shape like a horseshoe, with a small creek leading deep inside the island's heart, revealing a beautiful small beach surrounded by high cliffs and an alcove. High on top of the island, one finds lush forests and jungle, hiding and giving shelter to many different species of prehistoric creature. And all around the island, an elegant strand of beach sand completes the area known and crowned by some scientists as Turtle Beach. Though the open beach is home to different types of animal, the dominant species has got to be the Carbonemus. In simpler terms, it can be seen as a giant tortoise, though unlike a tortoise we know on Earth, this type of animal can actually swim and therefore resembles a mix between a turtle and a tortoise. The Carbonemus chooses these beaches surrounding the island as their nesting grounds. Much like the turtles that we are used to, they return to the same nesting spot each time. But all throughout the year, they stay relatively close to the spot where their eggs hatch. They share the beach with a number of animals, including the flying pteranodon. The openness of the beach might seem as a disadvantage to herbivores and make them easy prey for predators. But since these creatures can fly, this is none of their concern. They mostly feed on fish found in the nearby waters. Their long beak is filled to the brim with razor-sharp teeth, ideal for mincing up caught prey in a matter of seconds before devouring it. If a pteranodon is not able to make a catch, eventually they are known to prey on smaller dinosaurs or infants as well. Where the Carbonemus chooses the open beach as their nesting spot, the pteranodons prefer the high cliffs alongside the beach, where often the mothers tend to their young until they are old enough to fly. The cliff is a much safer spot than the beach, though it has occurred during stormy weather that eggs have blown out of the nest due to strong winds. In the nearby shallow waters, many fish make their home and come close to the surface like the coelacanth. Their silhouettes give away their position, making them easy prey for the pteranodon soaring into the sky above. Hunting is not without its dangers, as these waters are also home to the megalodon, the giant prehistoric sharks. Though they prefer the deeper end of the waters and rarely come this close to the surface. As the pteranodon prefers the sky, Turtle Beach can be considered the safest place as there are no other predatory birds in this vicinity. This has led to the evolving generation to have very bright looking color patterns, as they don't need to adapt to camouflage to survive in this environment. Though there are no other giant predatory birds like the Argentavis present at this island, they did share this area with some other flying animals that hunted in the ocean the same way as the pteranodon did. Fish, in a way, was the thing many of the creatures at Turtle Beach had in common. Though the Carbonemus ate small plants and berries too, its swimming capabilities made it to where they often went out to hunt for fish in the nearby water. But this did not come without risk. Meet the oviraptor. The oviraptor was the closest thing that the beach inhabitants could label as a pest. Only this one came with one exceptional danger: its fondness for eggs. Whenever some of the turtles went into the water to hunt, they left their nests exposed. It was common for them to lay their eggs close to their fellow Carbonemus and resemble more of a pack or group. This way, they ensured there would always be some turtles there to defend the eggs. But the oviraptor was small, agile, and kept a close eye on an opening and an opportune moment. Usually, the ones that went hunting were females that had stayed with the eggs for several days without eating anything. If more than one Carbonemus was seen to enter the water to hunt, this gave a signal to the oviraptor that one or maybe more of the nests were not as well guarded. The oviraptor's beak contained no teeth, but was sharp at the end, perfect for cracking the eggs or transporting it easily into its mouth without breaking it. Its long, flexible arms were also perfect for a snatch and grab and quickly disappear into the jungle. But where the oviraptor was only a real danger to the Carbonemus' eggs, in the water, there was more danger lurking around. Once again, it was rare for a big predator to come this close to the shore. The danger of beaching itself was high, and thus many avoided this place. The Carbonemus' shell was full of large spikes and covered most of its body to keep it protected. Its speed increased significantly once it glided through the water, but it wasn't particularly good at diving. The turtle had one weakness, and that was its soft underbelly. And with the animal not being able to dive well, it could often not see what was approaching from underneath. Though it was rare, there have been occasions of Carbonemus being devoured by the megalodon, sometimes even a group. We will delve deeper into the behavior of these magnificent creatures in another episode. But luckily, there were more friendly faces to be found on Turtle Beach. One of those was the quirky-looking Parasaurolophus. Though the beach was not really its home, it preferred the more covered meadows or jungle area up on top, they did come over to the shore once in a while. The Parasaur lived in herds, and this island had everything to offer them of what they wished for. The jungle, with its thick vegetation, offered a vastly varied offering of different plant life for the herbivores who lived here. Where some of these plants were poisonous to some of the wildlife, the stomachs of the Parasaur created this antitoxin which made them able to eat a lot more of the berries and plants that could be found here. They used their beaks to crush the leaves and plants to easily swallow and digest. The Parasaur had no means of defending themselves. Luckily for them, their size made them not a target of prey for some of the smaller predators that could be found here. This is probably one of the reasons why this species thrives so much on this island to the north. The way the Carbonemus would defend itself was with its head and mouth. Though the spikes on its back look menacing, their only purpose is to protect the turtle. Right above their eyes, they have small spikes, and the top of their skulls have reinforced bone, somewhat comparable to how a Pachycephalosaurus has this, except less thick. If the Carbonemus feels agitated, it first calls out to other mates to help, and then they stomp down their attacker with their heads and bite into them with their beaks. Some of the predators they would come into conflict were the Dilophosaurus. These creatures were the main predators here on the island, but their small stature made it to where they would mostly concentrate on smaller prey. They ate creatures like insects, small rodents, smaller birds, but sometimes would also attack a turtle if they were not able to get food for days. The Dilophosaurus catches its prey by sneaking up on it if it's considered an easy kill, or by paralyzing it with its spit. The Dilophosaurus has a lot of poison glands that become active when need be. The spit itself burns and irritates skin, and can cause blindness once hit in the eye. This makes it easier for the Dilophosaurus to eat its prey if it's stunned like that. They often hunt alone, but it has also occurred that they travel or hunt in packs of 2 or even 3. But there is one giant disadvantage that they have. Much like poison frogs or fish on planet Earth, the bright color of the Dilophosaurus works as a defense mechanism to showcase that they are poisonous. But the color makes them easy to spot for herbivores, especially on a place like Turtle Beach. It is therefore not uncommon that an attack ends in failure of the Dilophosaurus as the hunter became the hunted. Their easiest prey came in the form of the dodo, small, petty, slow, and absolutely unable to defend itself. If a Dilophosaurus would attack a dodo, it would not need to resort to using its spit. Its teeth would do the job just fine. Now, Turtle Beach is just one of the places that can be found on the northern island, and this place has so much more to offer. Join us in the next episode, where we enter the jungle and see what new creatures lie in wait here, where the shade of trees and bushes gives life and shelter to never-before-seen animals. We will also head deeper into the alcove and take a closer look at some of the rarest animals that can be found on the northern island before moving on to even more exciting places. I hope you liked the first episode. If you want to see more narrative content, please consider becoming a patron on my Patreon page, of which the link can be found in the description below, and follow me on Twitter for previews of what's coming to the channel. See you guys on the next episode of Planet ARK. Welcome to another episode of Planet ARK. Last time, we took a closer look at Turtle Beach that sprawls around most of the northern island to the east of the center. But on the opposite side, divided by a small creek, another beach can be found that is not dominated by one particular species. One animal that can be found here and not on the opposite side of Turtle Beach is the Moschops. This friendly creature makes a calm impression and does so as it has no means of defending itself. By the slightest hint of danger, it will flee, sometimes even leaving its eggs or mates behind. But because of that, the Moschops migrated to this part of the beach where the Dilophosaurus is not present. The beach gives a clear view of danger ahead, and having fellow Moschops nearby makes them feel more at ease. When we travel deeper into the island, towards the cliffs, we find towering trees up top, revealing the biome of thick forestry and jungle. The flora abruptly stops at the cliff's edge, giving it a certain danger for any creature looming too close. At first glance, one might not think life is very active here, as it doesn't sprawl as it does back on the beach. But soon the ground shakes as it becomes apparent that there's definitely life to be found here in the form of the gentle giant Stegosaurus. The Stegosaurus is, though it might leave an aggressive impression by its looks alone, one of the most gentle, albeit territorial dinosaurs out there. Its back has long bladed rows, mostly used for mating purposes rather than protection. Much like the peacock on Earth, the males have a brighter color palette meant to impress a female for a potential partner. Its tail has 6 long, deadly spikes which the Stegosaurus can use in a whip-like motion to hurt aggressors. There also have been sightings of Stegosaurus with only 4 spikes, and though the spikes seem like a deadly weapon, in reality, the Stegosaurus cannot use its tail with pinpoint accuracy. If attacked by something like a Tyrannosaurus Rex, rather than killing it, the Stegosaurus would most likely only be able to cripple it. Often Stegosaurus are seen on plains or savannas and roaming in a pack of 2, 3, or sometimes more. The thick jungle makes it seemingly difficult for larger predators to move around, thereby explaining the single Stegosaurus to prefer the jungle on the northern island. If one goes up even higher, nature changes too. The air becomes cooler, and the vegetation does not seem as lush. Rare minerals thrive here, and crystals that glow brilliantly in the sun can be seen everywhere along the mineral-rich rock sides. Even here, life can be found in the form of the Pachycephalosaurus. This herbivore looks a bit quaint with its large bulging head and spikes covered all over. Though the Pachy is not a meat eater, it has a quite aggressive nature. It's not very big compared to other dinosaurs, and will therefore quickly make a threatening pose if something comes too close to its territory. The bulging part of its skull is solid bone, and when it lowers its head, it lines up with its spine to create the perfect battering ram posture. Besides being effective at hurting incoming predators, again due to its size, it would most likely only be able to cripple something like a T-Rex as it breaks its leg bone. It is also used to duel other males to fight for the right to mate with another female. Right next to the roaming Patchy is a steep cliff that leads to an alcove at the end of the creek leading deeper into the island. If a dinosaur falls off the cliff, it is trapped here, and therefore the dominant type of creatures that can be found are that of the flying type and the swimming type. One of those flying types is the Tapahara. This beautiful creature's distinct feature is its large head crest, and large head in general compared to its body. It has a massive wingspan, and has claws at each end better suitable for climbing high trees or cliffs than the Pteranodon. Its diet consists mostly of nuts, berries, but also smaller land animals and fish. The latter is the reason for the Tapahara to descend down here. As the creek ends in the alcove, a lot of fish get trapped here, meaning they are an easy catch for looming predators from above. Its size scares off most of the competition, creating an entire buffet that this flying animal can feast upon. And though the water on the surface looks peaceful, underneath, death is rampant. Though fish get trapped in the shallow water, they can at least still swim around. But larger creatures, like the Basilosaurus, are too big and get stranded in areas like this. It is rare that this happens, but it does occur from time to time. With the inability to turn around, it lies at the bottom, waiting to die. It seems that nearby marine animals like the manta rays and Ichthyosaurus have noticed this too. When a large creature like this gets stranded, it also means an easy meal for others under the surface, and it looks like some of the manta rays have already started feasting on the giant whale-like creature while it's still alive. Some of the Ichthyosaurus patiently wait their turn, as it gets quite crowded in waters like these. Normally, the Ichthyosaurus enjoys a diet of smaller fish, squids, and shellfish found along the shore. But in an environment where it's not every day that food presents itself on a platter, many of them will not slip up on an opportunity like this. They lack piercing capabilities with their snout, as it's not reinforced at the end. But they have tiny, razor-sharp teeth along the edge that are perfect for picking out meat from an already opened wound. A little further down the creek, towards the ocean, a similar display occurred, where a megalodon had beached itself in too shallow water. It could still move a little bit, thereby not inviting as many hungry marine animals as the Basilosaurus did, but nevertheless, vulturing predators swam close to see if the megalodon had weakened to where it could not bite around itself in a panic frenzy. Above the surface, another flying creature can be seen shifting around. It is the small and hard to miss Dimorphodon. The Dimorphodon is one of the smallest flying creatures found on Planet ARK. It often goes unnoticed by larger, slower predators and benefits from its speed when it hunts for prey like small fish or insects. It has also occurred that it feeds on a larger carcass of an already passed animal on land if it's abandoned. The Dimorphodon can often be found in groups, and in forested areas, it is more occurrent that they have a more dull and camouflaged color pattern. It is fascinating to realize that in such a small part of the island, such a distinct ecosystem and versatility exists with the creatures present. If one looks in the shallow waters and beaches at this alcove, some peculiar creatures come into frame. The trilobite is a creature found all throughout Planet ARK near the ocean. It has no defense mechanisms, except its hardened exoskeleton. It's difficult to bite through for medium to small sized predators, their main source of threat. They are most likely to be attacked on the beach, as they are very slow as they move on many tiny legs searching for things to eat buried in the sand. Once attacked, they will try to get to the nearest water as fast as possible, as they are able to move much quicker in a water environment. It's one of the few creatures found on Planet ARK where no other color variation is known of. As we go back to the jungles on the northern island one last time, we find the biggest creature on the island, a beautiful, docile Diplodocus. This long-necked creature is part of some of the biggest creatures found throughout Planet ARK. Its main way of defense is its whip-like tail. Unlike the Stegosaurus, the Diplodocus can use it with pinpoint accuracy, but it is not often forced to do so. Only the biggest of predators will attack a Diplodocus, and those are not found on the northern island or on Turtle Beach. Therefore, this particular Diplodocus faces no danger and is one of the reasons why it lowers its head to eat from lower plants and bushes near the ground. Though its physical build is more horizontal compared to a creature like the Brontosaurus, the fact that its head is high off the ground is another way to avoid damage. By lowering its head, it bears its weak spot and will only do so when it feels absolutely safe. And that concludes our look at the northern island on the eastern side of Central Ark. It is amazing to see how many different animals live together in an enclosed, self-sustaining ecosystem isolated from other land masses. Next time, we will travel to new places and some that are much more dangerous than the northern island. It is time to look at some of the islands to the north side, where ash and smoke fills the air and huge predators roam the plains. It is here where fellow carnivores get eaten by other carnivores. It is here where the term survival of the fittest gets an entirely new meaning. If you like these narrative series, please consider becoming a sponsor on my Patreon, which can be found in the description below. Hopefully, I will see you all on the next episode of Planet ARK. Welcome to another episode of Planet ARK. In the last 2 episodes, we delved deeper into the mysteries of the northern island on the eastern side of the Ark Center. This time, we will head northwest, where a bunch of new islands present an entire new ecosystem drastically different from what we have seen before. At first glance, the geometry and flora are vastly different, as steam and smoke from lava streams can be seen from great distances. To the east of this giant landmass lies another small island, part of the same ecosystem. It is closer to the northern island discussed in the previous episode, and it is almost as if the island is cut in half. On the side facing the northern island, vegetation is rare, but green palm trees, thick grass, and even some flowers here and there can still be found. It becomes apparent that the giant spike-shaped rocks in the middle of this island have kept the poisonous ash at bay, as the other side is barren, scorched, resembling a forgotten land where the poisoned soil is covered in a thick layer of ash. Because of this divide, this island received the name of Scorched Island by the first scientists who discovered it. One thing that is very notable about these islands is that herbivores are not present. The most logical explanation for this is that there's simply nothing to eat here, since all the vegetation had been scorched. Scientists believed that on the green side of the Scorched Island there used to be herbivores, but that they all got eaten by the large number of predators. Because of this, the predators themselves live in a hierarchy where the smaller ones are often the prey of the larger dinosaurs. One of those predators that is heavily present on both islands is the saber-tooth. The saber-tooth mostly hunts at night, meaning that the early moment of dawn is a good moment to spot one in the wild. Their bright green eyes make it to where they have perfect vision in even the darkest of places. The plains or open fields offer a wide viewing range, giving the saber-tooth the preference to hunt here. Due to its thick fur, the saber-tooth can also often be found in cold places and on top of mountains. Their giant claws are perfect to traverse rough mountainous terrain. The fact that they have thrived in this hot and extreme environment is probably due to the fact that there are such a large number of them. If a saber-tooth finds a suitable prey or is attacked, it lets out a loud roar and immediately more of its pack come in to help. The saber-tooth often lives and hunts in packs with up to 6, but the scouting is often done by an individual. Once the target has been taken down, they all share the wealth of meat that can be hoisted. As the sun rises, more and more animals awake, and life goes on, as living for another day seems quite the challenge on the scorched island. High above the island, giant bird-like creatures roam the free skies. The Argentavis is the most ferocious and aggressive flying species known on Planet ARK. These Argentavis are the closest resemblance to birds as we know them back on Earth. They are covered in large sprawling feathers from head to toe along with a giant wingspan. Despite their high population on this particular island, they are quite selective when it comes to their breeding grounds. Their giant size demands a lot of meat intake, which will not suffice by just hunting fish. The Argentavis needs to hunt bigger prey. Though it has no teeth, its sharp beak is perfect for puncturing even the hardest of tissue, giving them the ability to feed. Due to their massive size that requires a lot of energy, they can only fly for a short amount of time. They often will settle on the ground to rest, making them vulnerable to any looming predator nearby. This weakness makes the Argentavis the most common food supply for the others on this island. But the Argentavis themselves also hunt those predators, and pick up smaller creatures like raptors or a saber-tooth with their giant talons that are perfect for grabbing and ripping open its skin. Color variation can vary greatly as well, and scientists even spotted some Argentavis with a fiery red look to them, almost resembling the mythic creature of the phoenix. Normally in other ecosystems beside the scorched island, they found it most likely that the Argentavis would be at the top of the food chain, with very few predators to worry about. This was not the case on the scorched island, and scientists believed that the fiery red Argentavis hailed from another nesting ground further away from the island. Another peculiar thing about the scorched island was that the hierarchy becomes very apparent as some of the predators seem to ignore one another. The Carnotaur, a predator with giant horns on its head that it uses in the same way as a bull does back on Earth, seem not bothered by creatures like the saber-tooth or raptors. Both the raptors and Carnotaur are also heavily present in other parts of Planet ARK, and therefore we will take a closer look on those particular dinosaurs in another episode. However, there's one dinosaur on this island that is so rare that we have to take a closer look at it. It is the Giganotosaurus. Though many would think of dinosaurs like the T-Rex or Spinosaurus when it comes to the most dangerous predators, in actuality, the Giganotosaurus is the most devastating of them all. The only thing is that they are very rare. Arguably the rarest land predator to be found all throughout Planet ARK. Its aggressive nature makes it to where it will attack almost anything that moves. The short time that the scientists monitored the behavior of the Giganotosaurus, it killed over 10 other animals. They found it fascinating how a predator so large could survive on a small island. At this rate, the fauna would go extinct in a matter of weeks. With the absence of herbivores, the scientists could not conclude if normally a Giganotosaurus diet would mostly consist of large herbivores like a Diplodocus. The kills it made on the island were mostly Argentavis, saber-tooth, and raptors, far too small to satisfy its hunger. The smaller size of its prey could mean that the Giganotosaurus was in constant hunger and explained why it killed so much. Other scientists believed it must have come from the main island towards the scorched side through shallow waters, as another Giganotosaurus had been spotted here as well. We then move on to the mainland mass surrounding the volcano. This island is 3 times the size of the northern island, yet does not offer as much variety in both ecological system and animal alike. Scientists still did not come up with an official name, as some would name it after the many lava pits and streams, while others would name it after the large amount of T-Rexes found here. Though the Tyrannosaurus rex can be found in multiple locations throughout Planet ARK, including thick jungles and even tundras, this species is nowhere as dominant as it is here. What is very interesting is that the aggressiveness of the Tyrannosaurus is much higher here. There have been sightings of T-Rexes on the scorched island, but they leave some of the other predators alone, including smaller ones. But on the main island, they hunt everything that is even remotely near them. though it could be a similar situation as with the Giganotosaurus, where prey like small raptors are not enough to satisfy its hunger. Some believe their aggressive behavior has also to do with them preserving their own kind as the dominant species on this island. Further land inward, the black volcanic beaches make way for razor-sharp rocks surrounded by charred-out trees. Here it becomes apparent that this ecosystem consists of the same formula as seen in the Scorched Island with the saber-tooth, Argentavis, and T-Rex. Though water is scarce on this island, it can be found in places, but in no way do these provide a safe drinking spot. This particular one houses a Spinosaurus, a very rare sighting in this region. The Spinosaurus can often be found near rivers due to its great ability to swim thanks to its large fin on its back, but at the same time, it can be fast on land too and prefers shade to surprise its prey. The absence of other Spinosaurus on the island has scientists believe that this particular one got lost and stranded on the island. It decided to stay here as this was one of the few places that had some water to offer. The water itself does not hold much life. One particular animal that can be found though is the piranha, aggressive fish that will eat almost anything that comes in the water. It does not discriminate between herbivore and carnivore, but the fact that it leaves the Spinosaurus alone might mean that the fish realizes it's too big for it, or that there are too few to take it on at the same time. If one goes even higher, it becomes steeper and steeper as we come closer to its peak. Once more, the T-Rex is on a dominant display as it attacks multiple animals at once. The strength of its jaw can easily snap bones, and it does not take the T-Rex long to rid itself of these pests. Much like seen all throughout, immediately it looks for a new target and finds this in a near Carnotaur. During this battle, it can be clearly seen how the Carnotaur uses its horns in the same way that a bull does. Its jaw strength is nowhere near that of a T-Rex, and thus it would not win in a confrontation with sheer bites. Instead, it tries to wound it by puncturing its legs or stomach. If the Carnotaur would face off against a smaller foe, the impact of the Carnotaur's charge would also fling its enemy back several meters. Then we finally reach the peak, and where one might think that it is here where the T-Rex has made its lair and has the most dominance, instead, they can only be found in a scattered manner. Much of this has to do with the giant lava pool found around here, making it extremely difficult for any animal to make this their nesting ground. Rather than the T-Rex, the Argentavis is more dominant, as they have to worry about less predators coming up here, and at the same time, their ability to fly over to other places in search for a meal. Confrontation up here often end in the favor of the Argentavis, as multiple will flock down on any carnivore attacking them. Nevertheless, some of the Argentavis get wounded in these fights, and it is exactly these wounded ones that make the perfect snack for any Tyrannosaurus on the lookout. And with a beautiful vista over many of the other landmasses close to the Ark Center, it is here that we have almost come to an end with the Scorched Islands. On the next episode, we will revisit this island one last time, but instead head underground. This island hosts a cave entrance that leads to mysterious and untamed places, where creatures that cannot bear the sensation of light and that make the little hairs in one's neck stand up. Thank you for watching another episode, and if you want to support this channel and like to see more cinematic videos in the future, please consider donating through my Patreon, which can be found in the description down below. I will see you all next time on another episode of Planet ARK. Welcome to another episode of Planet ARK. Last time, we explored the scorched surface of the volcanic islands near the center of the Ark, where on this level, it is a harsh reality where predators fight each other for dominance and survival, without any herbivore in sight, one might forget that there is another side to all of this. But that side does not reveal itself easily. Deep underground, a new ecosystem is hidden from plain sight, only accessible through a cave entrance on the island. Though there might be other places offering an opening, this wide gaping cave entrance was the most prominent. An extending stone path surrounded by lava stops abruptly, meaning our scientists and camera crew would have to use drones or rock climbing gear to get down. What is interesting to note is that on the surface level of the cave entrance, no life can be detected, and dinosaurs getting close to the entrance often turn away from it. The drop down in the cave is massive. The temperature rises even more, which is unbelievable in and of itself, as lava flows freely on the surface level. It is hard to imagine that anything can live down here. But once the bottom gets near, one can clearly see that we are not alone. In fact, a bunch of creatures are sprawled up here, but they are not your typical dinosaur species. The first creature we run into is the Titan boa. This giant snake can be found in different places, including swamps, but also caves like this or regular ones. The Titan boa is cold-blooded, meaning it needs its environment to warm up or cool down. That's why in regular caves where it's cooler, the snakes often can be found near the entrance or an opening offering some sunlight in case they want to warm up. Since the temperature in this cave is so high, it would explain why the Titan boa are bunched up in a corner where the surface of the rocks provide a slight bit of cooling as lava illuminates further in. The Titan boa is also deaf and depends on vibrations on the ground to know if a predator or prey approaches. Due to its size, it does not fear many creatures, as it has both the power to poison its enemy or crush its bones and suffocating it by wrapping around its victim. Because of the Titan boa's slow metabolism, it only needs to feed every 3 to 4 weeks. The fact that a Titan boa only needs to eat now and then is one of the reasons why it can survive in such a climate, but that counts for all the creatures here. The nearby dung beetle speaks for itself, as it benefits from the other animals here and in return is left alone for this. Dung beetles can be found in other caves too, mostly as the creatures that can be found here do not have the ability to stomp on them if they get too close. If we take a look further, we can see some creatures that will horrify some arachnophobes back on Earth. The Araneomorphus is a giant spider species that can be found in caves and swamps around Planet ARK. Their high number that can be found throughout this cave gives way to that they might be on top of the food chain within this particular environment. It shares similar aspects of different spider species back on Earth. Though it can shoot web to entangle its prey, it does not create one to live in, instead moving around similar to a huntsman spider. They can also spit venom from afar and have a very aggressive nature. Because of this aggressive nature and their own size, they will attack creatures that are a lot bigger than they are. They also don't have predators to worry about themselves. They have poisonous spikes and hairs on its legs and back to protect it. It can shoot its hairs in the air similar to that of a tarantula that will irritate and poison anyone coming too close if the hairs get into one's eyes, mouth, nose, or ears. If one takes a step away, it becomes apparent how many of these creepy crawlers are actually in here. Most of them are standing completely still. This is also common with these type of animals back on Earth. They will not consume energy unless they really have to. The Pulmonoscorpius is a giant scorpion that is actually not rare at all on Planet ARK. This creature can be found all throughout, including swamps, caves, mountains, and even near the shore sometimes. They will often act quite aggressive and dominant as their bright colors don't function well as camouflage. They will use their giant pincers to hold their enemy and then inject them with venom. They are very similar to regular scorpions back on Earth except for their huge size. As we get closer to the light source, it becomes apparent that the lava sprawling underneath is warming up everything around this area. As the cave opens up at its core, bright yellow hues can be seen from the lava below as stalactites droop from the ceiling as winding stone paths crawl and circle everywhere. The hot temperature and enclosed environment results in some rare minerals to be found here as well. Most humans would burn too quickly before they can reach them without proper protective gear. More insect-like creatures and arachnids can be found here. One of these creatures that can be found here is the Arthropleura, a giant centipede that is quite rare on Planet ARK. Much like the other animals that can be found here, the Arthropleura can be found in caves and swamps alike. It uses venom to stun its prey and seems to live peacefully amongst the other creatures like giant spiders and snakes. The length of the centipede makes it to where it's difficult to swallow for the Titan boa, and therefore it is not seen as a potential meal. Further along, it once more becomes apparent how dominantly the presence of the giant spiders is. They seem to have thrived here, probably due to the fact that they will prey on other creatures whereas they themselves are safe. It is one of the perks of being on top of the food chain, but if not controlled, they can become a pest and disrupt this ecosystem. As one followed the paths, eventually a fascinating discovery was made. At one of the cave walls, architecture was found, very similar to ancient civilizations back on Earth. Some would describe it like the Mayans or Aztecs. In front of this doorway, 2 torches were placed, further insinuating that not only creatures have been here before. This raised more questions than it answered. Who were the ones that made this? Where have they gone? What purpose do these structures serve? Some art could be seen as well, a skull that was not too far off from a human one. Were they portraying an ancient deity? Or were they to visualize the humble servants of the greater gods? None of the scientists knew the answer. If one does go through the portal, more creatures can be found, but no new species. What is new though is a particular glowing artifact near the wall. Its glow is bright red and a zooming sound can be heard up close. The material that it's made of does not coincide with anything thus far found on Planet ARK. This might have been left here by the same beings who built this architecture. At the edge, a slope moves upward, revealing a way to a different part of the cave system. As one goes through, one can see how intricate and massive these tunnel systems are. But no new creature species are spotted, with instead a repeat of the same type of spider, snake, scorpion, and centipede. A new room opens up at the end of the tunnel, much hinting to the fact that these bridges are also carved out by those who came before us. More torches can be seen, some right next to valuable minerals, insinuating that the mysterious beings that built these torches were not out to get these minerals. There was another artifact here. This time, it was blue and sphere-shaped, floating in the air surrounded by light. Having 2 of these so close together made the scientists guess that more would be found throughout ARK with different shapes and sizes. What their function was would remain a mystery. Further up ahead, it seemed like a dead end. Surrounding creatures were staring in silence like always, almost making the impression that they were guarding something. No creature got too close to the actual architecture though, this time not providing a way through, but instead another painting of the skull-shaped face. It is as far as here that our crew got. Some believed that these artifacts, paintings, and architecture had to do with the giant floating obelisks that were found throughout. Some believed that these were built out of a religious matter, while others disputed this theory. Since we now have explored the out and inside of the Scorched Islands, it is time to finally move on. In the next episode, we will once again drastically change environments as we get closer to the actual center. We will head into the tundras and mountains to the north. It is here where we can finally experience lush environments once more, complete with herbivores. And some of the creatures that can be found here are more majestic than ever. Some are very rare and once again have adapted to this cold environment, giving us a completely different look from anything we've experienced so far. If you like these cinematic series on the channel and would like to support me, please consider donating on my Patreon, which can be found in the description down below. I will see you all in the next episode of Planet ARK. Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Planet ARK. Before we begin today's episode, I would like to remind you that I recently started a gaming review channel where I do video reviews on several games, both old and new. This channel is way more laid back and won't have necessarily a new video every week, but maybe about 3 to 4 reviews per month. I recently added a new review, so if you are interested, please go have a look via the link to the Kanoa Reviews channel in the description. If you like what you see, please subscribe and share it with friends. And don't forget that you can also request certain reviews of games, both old and new, on the channel itself. In today's episode, we will travel far north, beyond the Scorched Isles, where blood was being spilled every day. Its high, snowy peaks can be seen from afar, greeting you with a friendly sight. Even seen from the Scorched Isles, a poisonous land where the ecosystem itself is broken as carnivores and predators fight for constant hunger and territory, the northern snowlands can be seen as a signal of hope. Among other small peninsulas, the northern snowlands is the smallest landmass near the actual Ark center, floating high in the air. Though the water here looks calm, it is quite treacherous, as the bottom suddenly falls from under you, showing nothing but a blue abyss without any sign of life. Not a single fish in sight. As one approaches the snowlands, sights and sounds could be noticed that were absent from the Scorched Isles. Large patches of green and lush trees, the sounds of birds and herds grazing along the tundra. It was here too where the edge of the center was located, with infinity waterfalls pinpointing the edge, with sneaky drafts that would lead any creature to its doom who dare too close. Near the shore, where the grass was thick and the flowers bright, all accompanied by a cool temperature, we find our first sign of a friendly creature, the woolly rhino. One glance of this creature and one can understand just how heavy this animal is. It moves slowly as it searches for edible plants, as it needs to constantly feed to keep its energy supply up. Its warm winter coat protects it from the harsh temperatures, pretty much like any creature here. Though the horns on its nose make quite the impression, it is very rare that the woolly rhino will make an aggressive stance. Even if a fight breaks out close to it, the rhino often won't be bothered to flee, as its weight and size can be seen as protection itself. They are spread out all throughout the snowlands, including the pine forests. The horns are of course also used amongst battles to choose an alpha. Due to the sharp nature of the horn, more often than not, these battles will end with one of the two dying, or in the worst case, both succumbing to their wounds. Color-wise, there's not that much variation, especially in terms of their fur, as they have a red and brown color scheme. But the fact that more often than not the rhino will ignore conflict does not mean that this place is without its dangers. The Uteranus, a rare predator that can be only found in the coldest regions in the center location, is a creature that many believe is related to the Tyrannosaurus. Its feathers keep it warm in the same way the wool does for the rhino. Its snout is long and pointy, making its biting angle more ferocious than a T-Rex, though lacking in power. One of the most unique aspects of a Yutyrannus is that it can live in harmony amongst other carnivores. The Yutyrannus is highly aggressive and will attack almost anything. The shape of its skull partially is to explain the horrifying sound that eludes when it roars towards a certain opponent or prey. The sound is so hellish that most creatures will turn and run. This is where the fleeing animal has the advantage. The Yutyrannus is not the fastest creature, and it often lets its presence be known by roaring. It occurs often where an animal it chases gets away in the end. Other scenarios that can also happen is that the creature it chases runs into a bigger herd to lose it, and the Yutyrannus instead will attack and kill a weaker or slower member of that herd instead. In this case, the woolly rhino will not run, but instead seek confrontation. This here showcases the advantage that the theropod has over the woolly rhino, as its high stance makes it easy to bite the herbivore in places where it cannot protect itself. As the rhino tries to gorge the Yutyrannus, the predator is free to bite in its neck, back, or side and fatally wound it to eventually devour. Another creature that could be found here was the woolly mammoth. This animal would be one of the first to come up in people's minds when they think about cold prehistoric climates. The mammoth is perfectly made for this environment as well. Its wool coat protects it from the coldest temperatures and harshest winds. Much like the rhino, it needs to constantly graze to keep up with the energy output, though overall it moves very slowly. Part of this is because of its apparent and large tusks. The shape and form of the tusks can vary greatly, though they often have multiple pointy ends all over, which it uses to fend for itself. Sometimes the color of the tusks can even be different, as can the tusks grow so big that it becomes a nuisance for the mammoth to see in front of it. Its ears are significantly smaller than elephants we know nowadays, pointing out to an evolutionary advantage that these creatures needed over thousands and thousands of years to eventually become the way we're used to them. But even the mammoth knows enemies here. Though dinosaurs themselves are still quite rare, they can be found within the snowlands. A T-Rex is a rare sight, but is one of the few predators that can pose a threat to the mammoth. Battles between these two behemoths often take very long, and make the ground itself shake. The mammoth is a bit better protected than the rhino, as the position of the tusks makes it easy for the mammoth to move its head sideways or to the front to lash out at its enemy. It's much more difficult for the T-Rex to reach the mammoth's side, though its slow movement is used to the T-Rex's advantage. The battle is long and bloody, and both are exhausted and beat up in the end. But finally the mammoth succumbs to the hungry jaws of the mighty T-Rex. But what might surprise some others is that the mammoth also faces a nemesis that's about 1/5 of its size. Traces of battles fought can be found throughout the tundra. The direwolf might be the most dominant predator in the snowlands, not because they are so strong on their own, but because they hunt in packs, and sometimes these packs can be up to 6 or 7 high. Even something like a mammoth or T-Rex would stand no chance against that many direwolves. The direwolves themselves were not particularly sturdy, meaning that often members of the pack were killed during hunts, or would die later due to wounds sustained. But 4, 5, or even more jaws biting at you at a high rate would bring any large target to its knees to be finished off quickly. Even the Ankylosaurus, built to last and only weak at its bottom, stood no chance, as it died by 1,000 cuts like emperors did in them olden days. The packs would patrol the tundra in search of cadavers or prey in the distance. Their eyes were sharp and could spot something as little as a rabbit for a potential prey. Their constant hunts also required a lot of energy. They were a lot more active than creatures like the mammoth and rhino. Therefore, they needed to constantly feed as well. Though unlike the Tyrannus, they were not constantly aggressive. If their hunger was stilled, they would just patrol their territory and would leave other creatures like the nearby elks alone. If one were to ascend the rocks beyond the tundra, one would get to the peaks of the snowlands. Here, green was changed into white, and cold would take hold even more. It was more difficult to find life here, though once again, nature astounds us by showcasing creatures especially built for this environment. Join us next time, in the final episode of Planet ARK for this season, as we take a look at the peaks at the center and explore the mysterious small lake beyond, where animals live in a secluded environment unlike anywhere else. Don't forget to like and share this with others, as it does help the channel a lot. I will see you all on the next episode of Planet ARK. Hey everybody, before we start today's episode, I would like to remind you that I recently started a gaming review channel. You can find the link to that channel in the description down below. It is labeled Konoha Reviews. On that channel, I review games, both old and new, and you can even request certain reviews by commenting on the videos on there. Please check it out, and if you like what you see, please consider subscribing and supporting me on that channel. Thanks, and enjoy the rest of the episode. Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Planet ARK, the final episode of Season 1, where we mostly have focused on different areas around the Ark Center. Last time we left off as we explored the cold tundras that stood at the base of the snowlands, with peaks ever reaching towards the skies. Though many different creatures roam the tundras, it is quite different in the actual snow. Besides the obvious cold that is an issue for many animals, the primary reason for not seeing much life here is the lack of food. A lack of berries or plants to eat keeps many herbivores away, which in turn keeps the carnivores away. One might get lucky and see a mammoth or two here or there. Thanks to their trunks, they are able to search for fallen nuts or other edibles covered beneath the snow. It is still not enough to maintain a proper diet for the huge animal, but the safety of the environment does lure some here from time to time. The snowy peaks do end rather abruptly, which can be really dangerous, especially during a snowstorm. The drop is really steep and is responsible for the death of many a lost animal. But over here, one can stumble upon one of the rarer animals that can be found on Planet ARK. And it is an animal that is not bothered by the cold temperature of the ground, nor the lack of food found around here. The Quetzalcoatlus, or Quetzal for short, is one of the largest flying creatures that can be found throughout. From afar, it can be mistaken for a pteranodon, as its build is quite similar. It is known to nest on the absolute highest peaks, much higher than any other avian. This explains why the Quetzal was encountered here at the Snowland Peaks, though it is somewhat peculiar, as one might imagine that the low temperature might be rather disadvantageous for nesting. Due to its giant wingspan and power, it can easily travel with a few flaps, not exerting large amounts of energy. Though the snowlands themselves provide little to no food, the ocean is close enough to where the Quetzal can head on over and look for tasty snacks under the water. It is bound to keep its hunting location to the ocean, as ironically its personality is rather skittish. One would expect a giant of this size to be rather feisty or aggressive, but more often than not, it would choose to flee when a predator was near. And thus the snowlands, in and of themselves, don't have much to offer us at their highest peaks. They loom over each and every one of us as life continues all around them. But if one were to look towards the south, one were to see a mysterious looking iceberg floating in a giant lake. It seemed that the snowlands have more interesting secrets to offer, and as one made its approach towards that area, green came back into the scenery as the environment slowly transformed back into the tundra. The sightings of animals here were quite familiar, with mammoths, dire wolves, and woolly rhinos. It became ever so apparent that the peace and quiet provided high on top of the snowy peaks only lasted there, since blood flowed freely once more. In some ways, this area of the tundra seemed even more dangerous than the coast. At least the coastal area did not have any enemies emerge from the water side, meaning there was always one side that the animals could consider safe. But this particular zone was far more lush, offering plants and berries not found near the waters, making it worthwhile for some of the herbivores to make the dangerous journey. The closer one would get to the ice, the calmer it seemed. In fact, it doesn't seem that dangerous at all, as a pair of Ankylosaurus seem rather peaceful and without any feeling of being threatened. The reason for this is that the area surrounding the ice belongs to a single Spinosaurus prowling about. But this Spinosaurus was not a real danger to the herbivores most of the time. Its diet consisted primarily from fish and other critters found in the water around the ice. Being that it had claimed this territory, without the threat of other predators of barging in, the Spinosaurus made a very calm impression throughout. Part of what was on the menu for the Spinosaurus happened to also live on the ice plateau. They were small, furry creatures that were difficult to spot from a far distance. But when one would get close to the ice, it became apparent that it was inhabited by dozens of penguins. Though the penguins themselves made it seem like they had no way of defending themselves, which in a way was true, they were very resilient to this cold climate. In fact, no other creature found on Planet ARK could survive temperatures like this, mainly due to their thick layer of blubber. Similar to the penguins back on Earth, they were very slow and waggly on land and ice. But in the water, they were way faster, thanks to their torpedo-like shape. In the water, they were able to escape the jaws of the Spinosaurus, but most of the penguins which ended up in the stomach of the giant dinosaur were caught on land where they simply could not outrun it. The Spinosaurus never came on the ice though, due to its narrow openings and areas, thus making the ice plateau a thriving place for the penguin population. Since this is the final episode, we will also briefly take a look at a never-before-seen area of the Ark's center. Not the actual center itself, but the sprawling landmass on the opposite side of the Scorched Island. Where the Scorched Island is a desolate place, which could literally be described as hell come to life, the redwoods on the opposite side was marked as a beautiful painting reaching all the way towards the Infinity Waterfalls. The giant treetops could be spotted from all the other islands in the vicinity, promising a very different ecosystem than the tropical one we are so used to. There was much to see. Besides just the forest area with trees, lush bushes, and creeks, there were caves and more to discover. On first glance, when one would walk through this area, one might not pick up on too much life. It seems very tranquil, not a threat in sight, and though dangers can certainly be found in this area, it is indeed safe to say that this place is a bit more peaceful compared to others like the tundra, the Scorched Island, and even the northern tropical island. Trees as tall as skyscrapers reach out as far as the eye can see, really also obscuring a lot of the view if one were up close. The trees were so large that if one were to fall over, it could create a natural bridge connecting different cliff sides. Being in such a forest that reached vertically this high, it would be expected that the creatures here are adapted to that environment as well. And indeed, one has to just look at their build and can see the expected outcome. One of the unique creatures that can be found here is the mammal Paraceratherium, that due to its lack of natural enemies because of its sheer size, is very docile. It is a very unique look, resembling a mixture of a horse, a rhino, and a giraffe. In general, these creatures can be found in savannas, where they have a clear overview of large trees they can feed from. They often move in herds and it is therefore rare to see them in the redwoods. But this one probably saw a unique opportunity in so much food being offered at the ready at its ideal height. Due to its size, it needs to constantly feed, making it all the easier that it doesn't have to fear but the biggest predators. Besides this friendly mammal, other dinosaurs can be spotted that share its big size. They can reach for the tops of many pine trees to get at the leaves that others cannot. It does make maneuvering through the thick vegetation a bit more of a challenge for these creatures. And were one to look closely, some real gems in terms of locations could be found throughout the redwoods as well, including beautiful, quaint waterfalls at the end of small creeks. At the base of these waterfalls, some more unique creatures could be found, in the form of the giant beavers. These busy workers are, of course as always, on the move as they often work together in packs or families to build dams or dens where they could live, breed, and hide in case of danger. The spot they chose here gave room and a good view of all sides, meaning that they had almost nothing to fear. All in all, one could indeed say that it was very peaceful here. But as mentioned before, there was certainly danger lurking, but it was not that aggressive. One of the predators that loomed about was the giant bear. But rather than being over-aggressive like some of the dinosaurs, the bear can actually be quite tranquil. Rather than just a carnivore, it is an omnivore, and eats things like nuts, berries, and more besides just meat. It basically eats whatever it can get its paws on, and will become more dangerous and aggressive when it has not fed for a while. They are also very territorial, meaning they will lash out at those who come too close, but mostly just to lead them away. It is because of this that in the vicinity, other bears cannot be found. And with that, we have come to the end of Season 1 of Planet ARK. We have seen many and varied ecosystems throughout, but there is so much more to learn and observe. I hope you all join me next time in Season 2 of Planet ARK, where we will head to new areas, including dark and mysterious caves, vast oceans, and scorching deserts. Hey everyone, and thank you so much for venturing on this journey with me during this unique series. I came up with the idea after asking people what kind of dinosaur type series they wanted to see besides the Jurassic World Evolution one. I was also asked to do a somewhat similar series with the game The Isle, but it was a bit more difficult to do that since that is a multiplayer game. I specifically wanted to do it in a nature-style documentary where the creatures were the NPCs. Their movements were indeed a bit random at times, often moving around in circles, and it is true that if the creatures had been controlled by players, I could direct them more to do specific movements like drink water or hunt in a pack. But I preferred the approach of a Planet Earth style documentary where I get beautiful imagery and then record and narrate over it. It was very fun to do, and just the Unreal Engine 4 and the world that they created in ARK is gorgeous, and made me realize just once more how insanely beautiful this game is. Despite the fact that I was very happy with the series, I was a bit surprised though at first, since the episodes at first did not perform very well. It made me realize that though quite a few viewers asked for a more dinosaur type series, that the mainstream wasn't necessarily interested in this. The first two episodes barely made over 2,000 views when they first came out, though by now they have picked up some speed and the first episode is close to 20,000 views. So that's very good. I first was hesitant to make a season 2, but seeing as the series got views over time, I decided to greenlight at least one more season of probably 5, maybe 6 episodes where we will take a closer look at some of the expansion worlds. I have both of the expansions. There are still many creatures and environments that we have not seen, and what I will also be doing a little bit different this time is that before Season 2 will start, is that I will have pre-recorded the first 2, 3, maybe even 4 episodes, so that there are not those long pauses in between the episodes, which will make everyone hopefully a lot happier. Once again, thank you all for the support that you have given this unique series on my channel, and I hope you will also support me on the other non-dinosaur related series in the future. For those loyal viewers who stuck around to the end of this video, I do have one final surprise, and that is that despite Season 1 being over, one more episode will be posted very soon, but it will not be in the way that you think it will be. Here you can get a short glimpse of what to expect, and maybe by the image you can already guess what the day this will be posted on. Thanks again so much, and see you all on the next series.